Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the next video in the what and the how series of UiPath. For the people who are looking the series for the first time, in this series I am trying to answer the queries which I receive over the channel, over the Instagram or over my email. We have already covered this couple of videos in the series. In case you want to refer the previous videos, the link of the playlist is available in the description. For today, I want to take this question which is from Mahesh. He asked that I have a question where in Excel we have one column which has the data followed by a percentage, for example a 12%. Now he might have a requirement where he want to convert this from a percentage value to something called an integer or a double, right? So that is what I wanted to cover, that how exactly can we tackle this situation. There are multiple ways to do it, but let me show you one of the simplest way which you can accomplish this. In case you are new to Excel automation, there is a complete dedicated playlist which explains the Excel activities and the properties in details. I have put the link also in the description for your reference, right? Now let's go to Mahesh question. And this is the Excel which I have prepared, where I have some of the name. Let's say these are their percentages, and what we want here, that we want the number to be something like this, 73, right? 40. How I can do that? So that is the same thing which we want to accomplish with the help of UiPath, right? So this is the Excel which I will just do a quick save. This Excel I have stored in my location, which is in my D data Excel file, and this is the percent data which is Excel available having all this data, right? Let me just quickly go back to UiPath Studio. I have this sequence which I have already created. The name of the sequence I have renamed as Excel replace. You can start by creating a new sequence. So the first thing first, I want to first read this data from the Excel, right? Now to read the data from the Excel, I have two activities called read range. Since I already have Excel installed on my computer, I want to use the Excel application scope. Okay, so I'll go here and I drag and drop the Excel application scope. That's it. Excel application scope is asking me, tell me where is your Excel located. So I'll go back to the folder, right click on it and say copy as path. This will give me the complete path of the Excel. So you can always use this button as well and do a Ctrl+V. That's it. So I am telling UiPath to read the Excel from D data Excel percentage and the complete path, right? Now Excel may have multiple sheets. I am interested in the sheet whose name is data, right? Here I can see the sheet name as data. Now to how do I read the sheet data? I simply go to the activity, use here something which is called read range, and since we are using Excel application scope, so I'll use this guy which says Excel read range. Drag and drop it here. Now it is going to ask me, tell me where is your sheet. So I say my sheet name is data. That's it, right? Let me just remove this empty columns from here like this. So okay, now it will do is it will read all this data. Do I want to read all this data? Yes. So I have kept a double quotes here. That's it. Let's go to the properties. Best practice, always use the rename activities. Okay, does my data have headers? Yes, we do have headers, right? So that's it. Now the output of the read range would be a data table. I'll go here, hit Ctrl+K, and I say dt underscore, let's say input. Okay, always make sure that you rename the variables properly. That is one of the again best practice, that you should have a follow proper naming convention. Okay, now dt underscore input would be created by UiPath for me. Yes, I can see that the variable is created. Now what is the next thing? The next thing is I have got all these data in a data table. Now if I want to convert this and remove the percentage symbol from here, if I ask you as a human, how do you do? So you would say that I simply go and replace this percentage sign with nothing or a space or anything, right? That will remove this percentage. The same thing I have to do in this also. Once I have read the complete data, UiPath has given me this complete data in a data table. Now I have to do it for all the rows, for all these 9 or 10 rows. So I have to iterate it. To iterate it, we simply use an activity which is called the for each. Now we are using data table, so I can use the data table for each. I'll simply say for each row, current row in the data table. The data table is dt input, right? Because that is where we are reading the Excel and storing all the data. Now when I am using the for each row, its property is that in the current row, you will get first this guy, then Valerie, then Loyola, then Johnson, then Jackson, then Paul. So the current row will have all these data one by one, and I am interested in the percentage column, or I would say the second column. So what I'll do is, in the body, let's try to replace the percentage from the second column, right? Column 1, column 2. So let me go back to UiPath. I'll go here and I'll take a assign activity. Okay. I drag and drop an assign activity here, right? Now I am telling UiPath that you convert it and you store that value in some variable. So I'll create a variable here. I would say control plus K, and I will call that variable, let's say integer underscore percent, or let's say int underscore num, right? Let me call it a variable called int underscore num. The variable would be automatically created here, right? Now in this expression, I'll just open this in the advanced editor here like this. In the advanced editor, I am going to write an expression, right? So I am telling UiPath that from the current row, which is nothing but this guy as of now. So I would have this one and the 73%. From the current row, it is asking me either you can provide me the name of the column, or if you just select this drop down, you would see that there are other options. You can provide the column number as well. I have the column name, so my column name is percentage, right? So I'll just copy this percentage, go here in the double quotes, pass the percentage. So current row of percentage would give me 73, right? So that I have got 73% as of now. Now what do I want to do? I want to replace. So I would put a dot. Now you would see here I am not getting a replace function. The replace function is a property of the string variable, and as of now the current row dot percentage does not understand what might be the output. So I am telling UiPath that you convert that 73% to a string variable first. So that means now that complete 73% would now be available in a string variable. So dot to string. Now if I put a dot, I will get all the methods of the string, including the replace, right? So I put a dot replace. Now replace is a simple function. It simply asks you provide an old value. If you can see, it is highlighted in the bold here. Provide an old value, put a comma, and then provide a new value, right? So what is my old value? My old value is percentage. That is what I want to replace. Now as per the syntax, it is asking me to put a comma and the new value. Don't want to replace with anything, and I simply hit OK. That's it. Now this complete output of current row dot to string dot replace percentage will give me a number, right? Now that number, if you will see here, as of now I have stored it in a string variable. If I want to convert it to a integer, you can always go to the properties here and you can simply convert this to an integer. How can I do it? You can just use this complete thing. I say that I want to convert dot to int 32. I want to convert this complete thing to an integer. That's it. Hit OK. And now it is giving me an error. It is saying, Mukesh, you are getting an integer, but your int num is a string, right? Let me check in the variables. Yes, we never told it is a string, right? So I convert it to integer. Errors are gone, right? So I hope you understand what we just did here. I'll just explain it again. We went to the current row, which is the first row. We told UiPath to read the percentage, right? Which means it will get the 73 percentage. I want to use the replace functionality. It's a functionality, or I would say a method of string. So I converted this complete thing to a string. Then I used a replace. Replace has a simple syntax: provide an old value and provide a new value. Since I want the final to be a integer, I always can convert it to integer 32, or you can always store it as a string as well, right? So I simply hit an OK. That's it, right? So that means now that int number, when it is running in the first iteration, will have the number 73. Now I have to write that 73 in this column number C. Now to write that column into the cell, I have an activity which is called write cell, right? Again, two activities. I'll use the Excel one. Write cell read range is explained in detail in previous videos of the Excel automation series. Please feel free to watch the videos to get a better context. Okay. Now, the write cell activity. The write cell activity is expecting you to provide a sheet name. So my sheet name is data. I'll just go here, copy this, Control A, Control C, Control V, right? Now if you go to the write cell in the properties, you will see the value, which is this guy. The value is a string. It is asking me that if you want to write something on this cell, you have to provide me a string. So now, if you remember, I have to write the data in this column. So this column is C2 and I want to write only the 73. But 73 is already converted to an integer, right? So that was the actual problem statement which was asked on the channel, that I want to convert it to integer. So that answers Mahesh's question, that how do I convert it to integer? But for our use case, I want to write it here again, right? So it's absolutely simple, right? I just write it here in num, and then to suffice the need of string, dot to string. That's it. So that will print 73 in the cell A1, which is this. Do I want to print here? The answer is no. I want to print 73 in this one, which is nothing but C2. So I go here and I write C2. I save this automation. Now you might be thinking, Mukesh, every time you run this automation, it is going to write the thing in the C2 only. And that's correct, right? Because you are instructing it to write in C2. But my actual requirement is I want to increment it one by one. So this 2 should not be hard coded here, right? So this 2 actually should not be hard coded here. For the next row, it should be C3, C4, C5, C6. How can I do that? In the for each property, we have a very good property which is called index. So that is what I am going to use here. In one of the previous video, I have explained the index property in detail. Feel free to watch that video, but if you continue to watch this, you will understand that what exactly that does, right? So every for each activity, if you go to the properties, has something which is called index, and it says that I am a zero base index. It means that when you read the data table, this guy will have an index of 0, this guy will have an index of 1, index of 2, index of 3, 4, 5, 6, like that, right? So I'll go here and I'll say UiPath, when you are reading this data, I want you to store the index in a variable called index. That's it. So when it is reading the first row, which is this one, it will have an index of 0, right? So this index variable, whatever we have, index, it is an integer variable and it would have a count of 0, right? So let me go to here in the advanced editor. I am telling UiPath that C is fixed because everything we want to write in the C column. But when you are reading it for the first time, I want you to get the number from the index. Now the index number is 0. I want to write it in C2. So how do I make it 2? Index plus 2. which means that whatever you are getting in an index, add 2 to that thing. Let me explain it again. Whenever we read the data in a for each loop, UiPath store this thing in an index. So first row, it has an index of 0, index of 1, index of 2, index of 3, right? So it has an index of 0, it has an index of 1, it has an index of 2, it has an index of 3. Now if I have to write something here, you would notice that I have to write in C2. That means in the index, I would have to add 2. The same thing, right? If I have to write here, my index is 1 and I want a value of C3, so I have to add 2. So this adding of 2 is constant, right? So I have to add 2 to the index to get this number correctly and then append it with the C alphabet. Why C? Because C is common, right? I hope you understand this concept. Let me quickly delete this. Go back to our UiPath Studio. So I am telling that C, whatever you get in the index, first time it would be 0 plus 2, C2, C3, C4, C5, like that it will incrementing. And since this is a string, I would again convert this thing to a dot to string, because I want the final output to be C2, C3, C4, C5. You might be thinking, why do I need a string, right? Because if you go to the right cell in the properties, right cell expect you to have the range, this guy, see, in a form of string. In the angular brackets, you would see that it is asking me to provide a string. So that's why telling it to give me a string variable, right? So this is what the right cell, and I just say that this is the number. I hope you understand how we can do it. You can always do it with the help of a number increment, that you take an integer variable, you increment it, you count the number of rows in the data table, you keep on incrementing the number. That goes for a lot of additional logic, right? So if you already have this property of index, why not use it, right? So that is what we wanted to do, right? I have completed this automation to work it in one by one way, and we want to see how does the automation happen. I'm going to put a message box explicitly here, and I would simply say click OK, right? So once we have tested it, we'll simply remove this message box, right? So I simply say here click OK. So this completes my automation, guys. So this is an Excel. Let me check everything is looking good. Okay, so let's try to run this automation. I'll save this. I am using Excel application scope, so I can keep this Excel open, right? And in the Excel application scope, I want to see what is happening, right? So I just make it as visible true. Okay, let's try to run the automation and see how it behaves. So I have my Excel open. Let me go to my UiPath Studio, go here, and I say run the file. Now my automation would start, and we have intentionally put a message box that should have come, but unfortunately we have got an error which says that input string was not in a correct format, which says that system.format exception, which means that the format which we have assigned is incorrect. And if you would see, the source is the assign activity, which is this guy, right? So let us click OK and try to investigate what is happening here. It says that the input string is not in a correct format. Let me open this in the advanced editor. So current row %.toString and replace this. Okay. So there is something which is not coming in the way it is expected, right? Now in such situation, what should a developer do? Debug, right? So that is what I'm going to do. So I'm facing an error here. So I'll simply go and put a breakpoint in the for each loop. And now this time I'm going to say debug the file. I'm going to see what exactly is the data coming in the current row that UiPath is not able to convert, right? So the data is read here. Let me go to the locals, right? So that is how you debug. In the DT input, this is my complete data table. If I click on step into, it's inside this one, and my current row is also populated now, right? So if I go to the DT input now and I click on this button, edit. Okay. So this is the error. If you would see here, when UiPath is reading this data from the Excel, the numbers are being read as 0.73, 0.4, 0.45, which means that this column is being read as a percentage, which means UiPath is not retaining the format. If you click on the data on the Excel, it's a percentage. That's why when you read the data in the data table, it is coming as 0.73, 0.4, 0.45. Now, how do I fix it? Right? So we understood the problem. That is why when you go and click on step into, this activity is giving error, which is saying that you are telling us to convert the percentage and replace the percentage sign, but in the data table you don't have the percentage sign, right? That is why it's not in a correct format. Okay, let's try to fix that. Now, depending on your requirement, there can be two fixes for that. The first fix it, I tell UiPath that you read the column as it is, which means that if it is 73% here, you read it as 73% only. Or you can come to here and you can convert this thing to some other type which UiPath reads it correctly, right? It can be text, it can be another format, journal, text, anything, right? So for me, let's say I want to instruct UiPath that you please read this data as it is. So how do I do that? In the read range activity, in the properties, we have something which is called preserve the format. Preserve the format, it means that it is going to retain the things as it looks in the Excel. Now, mind you, when you are reading the data in the bulk, preserve formatting might affect your performance and the processing might be slow. But for us, we have a less amount of data, so I go and click on preserve formatting. In the video of the Excel read range property, I have explained all of these properties one by one. So I would request you, if you don't understand these guys, please have a look into that video. That will clear your doubts that how do I use it, right? So as of now, I have told UiPath that you preserve the formatting, right? Let me quickly do a control plus S, a save. And again, I want to check it in the debug mode before running the end-to-end automation, right? So the same automation, we just have enabled the formats, enable the formatting, right? So I just say here inside the for each, let us go back to the locals in the data table now, which is the DT input. Let's quickly open the data, and now you would notice that previously I was getting 0.73, but now I am getting 73%, which means that UiPath is reading this data as it should read, right? I'll hit OK, minimize this as well, minimize this, and let's click on step into. Right now it should be able to convert it to the number. Previously I was getting that error, but now it's resolved, right? Now this guy will actually create the index number dynamically. Index plus 2, 0 plus 2 is 2, so C2. Now if I run this activity in the C2, here we should have the 73 written. Let me click on step into, and if I go to the Excel, 73 is written, right? So that was our objective. So now if I simply click on stop, that will completely stop the automation. I have seen that yes, it is working fine for me. So yes, I have rectified the error. Let me delete this. I'll save the Excel, go back to the automation, and now this time I am going to run the automation end to end, right? We have placed a message box to see the output in the real time. Okay, it says 73, click OK. Next iteration 40, next iteration 45, and you would notice that this number is getting dynamically incremented with the help of index property, right? Hit OK, again 48. I'll just do it for all the 3 records, right? 80. It is getting all the rows one by one from the data table with the help of for each, and once it is completed, it will skip the loop, right? So if I click on OK, the loop skipped. I can go to the output and you would see that I have got no errors. It completed in 35 seconds. So yes, that is how you are able to convert the percentage column to a normal column, right? So what exactly we learned today? We have learned two things today. The first thing is that how we can actually use the replace function. The second thing is, if you have some error which is in conversion, that might be because of the format which the Excel is having, and when we read it in the data table, it might look different, right? So you might need to consider this learning whenever you are doing your next set of automation, right? Okay, so that is what pretty much I wanted to cover in this video. Now there are other ways to do it also. We can always use a link queue query, which would actually go and do this thing at one shot rather than running it a for each loop. You can always write a Excel VBA, also known as a macro file, to convert all this to a number column. There can be other ways as well, right? You can let me know in the comments what other approaches we can use. One approach is definitely this one which we have used. The other one which I feel could be link queue, and the third one could be an Excel VBA or a macro, right? So depending on your requirement, you can use the one, anyone which you like, but the idea is you need to understand the concept first. Okay, so that is all for this video. If you have any more question on this one, feel free to drop me a note in the comment, or you can always write me an email. If you have any such question or any problem statement which you want me to cover like this, feel free to drop me an email or comment the same. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.